Hey, it's Tim Guitar, and today I have a special guest on the show. It's my buddy Chris from the YouTube channel Audio Discovery.
Hey man, what's going on?
So a little background on Chris. He's probably the best musician that I personally know. He can play guitar. He can play bass. And he can drum. And I think there's probably more that I don't know, but he's just one of those guys that you can hand him an instrument and he can just make magic with it, no matter what it is. So I'm excited to have him on the show. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
And today we're going to talk about something simple, but it's a topic of recording. So we're going to be recording through the cab here, but we're going to do some mic comparisons, and we're going to look at microphone placement on the cab. And we're going to pick Chris's brain on what he knows, and hopefully at the end of this we'll have a few comparisons to look at and hear the differences in some of these sound clips. So what we have today and what we're going to compare, they're two pretty standard microphones. It's a Sennheiser E906 and the SM57. And the SM57 being one of the probably primary microphones that a lot of people use for recording. But we're going to do some samples on both to hear the differences. But I want, Chris did a really good job of explaining some of the differences in mic placement and also microphones in general. So right now we're just going to hear what he has to say about the different types.
I had a friend that was going through audio engineering school who said, because I at that time only had two SM57 microphones to my name, and when I had mentioned that, her response to that was, well, you'll never get fired for putting a 57 on it. The reason is it's a pretty well balanced mic, and there's tons of there's tons of literature and there's tons of videos out that explain the benefits of a 57, and when you use an SM57 on a signal, you'll notice that they're true. And one of the things that really has a benefit to the microphone that is not even sound related, but they end up, they're super, they're bricks. If you get stopped with one of these in your pocket, by some law enforcement or whatever, I mean, you could be charged with, wielding a deadly weapon. I mean, these things are certainly, but they're very heavy duty. The capsules are really, they're very high function. They take a lot of sound input, so that's why usually they're really good for getting loud sounds, but on a sound wise and from a sound perspective, these microphones are really they're pretty detailed in the from like the 4K range to the 7K range, and so you'll get a decent amount of mids and high mids detailed, and that's why they cut through a mix. The 906 has a really good, it's a little bit on the crispier side, and it gives you a little bit more of a high-end boost. Now, where sometimes this could be brittle, other times it could work out to your benefit. And one of the things we were talking about while we were setting up was, a lot of the reason, or a lot of the consideration that I have whenever I'm miking a signal is the signal, which is a guitar signal or any other sound source, it's gonna have to pair with other things that are happening in the mix. So that's why we're considering either the Sennheiser 906, which I called a 609 earlier, sorry about that. So either the Sennheiser 906 or the 57, they have different characteristics, right? Now, obviously, you're going to have the capsule construction is going to be a little bit different. You can tell the difference weight-wise. This one's this one's a lot heavier than the Sennheiser, and that's going to matter because, say for instance, any low frequencies may make the the plastic housing resonate a little bit. So depending on what you're thinking about, that's going to be a consideration. When I'm thinking about the general mix, how much how much of the highs, how much of the high mids. And if we look at, we had taken a look at the frequency charts, and on the frequency spectrum, you're going to see that the 57 has a bit more detail, and it's not necessarily it's a little bit more, you called it focused.
Yeah.
So it was more of a focus in the range, and you're only getting about 5 dB of a boost in that high frequency or in that high mid range, and then a flat curve from 1K down, and it slopes down to down past 100 hertz. Now that translates to, you're going to get the microphone doesn't really give you anything in that low end to low mid. It doesn't really change the sound very much there, but it just gives you a little bit of a boost in the high mid frequencies. And what that means is those are frequencies that your distortion is going to be really focused. The clipping stage when you're hitting, and you can test this out if you have a parametric or a spectrum analyzer or a parametric EQ. What you can do is you can kind of listen to a distorted guitar, and you'll do a filter sweep, and as you listen in, you'll start to hear where it starts to sound crispy. And the crispiness of the 57 is very well known, very well detailed, and really gets the essence of that tone. Now the 906, I almost did it again. Say for instance, I was looking to tame a guitar sound that was kind of brittle and kind of on a high end. Between these two, I would probably choose the SM57. And the SM57 is, in comparison to the 906, is going to tame it off a little bit because it's not giving as much of that high frequency boost, whereas the 906 is actually going to sort of be a little bit more of a brighter microphone. So between these two, you're going to have different characteristics, and so I think today we're going to actually put them through the test.
Yeah.
So
we'll mic them up in the same spots on the speaker, and you've seen it before that I've got these little gray squares on the mesh of the cabinet, which is where the cone and the cap come together. And I do that just to make it easier when miking up the speaker for recording. So we're going to put them in the same spot. That way we know everything's very focused and it's in the same area. We're going to try and do the best audio samples as possible.
When you get the center of the cone of a speaker cabinet, you're going to get the maximum amount of brightness out of it. And so the more that you go away from that center of the cone, in whichever direction, you're going to find that the sound starts to be less bright and brittle, and I'm starting to have some really nice kind of low frequency definition start to creep up into the sound. So it's not so much that when you do in the middle, we're doing that just to sort of measure between these two, and once you find that you like one microphone over another in terms of getting that high frequency kind of tamed, then you can pull away from the middle and start to go towards the edge of the cone and find out where your sound sounds best there. So and also you can see within, you could kind of draw like little square boxes, or maybe even like a round target to find out which part of the speaker that you like best.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing is that you have a speaker, it's got 3 other speakers that are next to it. So if you go away from those speakers, you're going to have different types of characteristics because you're going to get some speaker bleed as well.
Yeah.
So and then depending on, right now we have an oversized Mesa cabinet that's it's got a lot of body to it, so it's got a lot of resonance. So you've got a lot of low frequency content there. And so that's going to also creep into your signal too. So you're going to listen for that kind of stuff as you move the microphone around. And last thing I'll say about it, sorry, but one thing is good to do, or one thing that would be good to do is, if you want to take a methodical approach to it, is to mic up your signal, and then as you move the mic, because you want to find out which point sounds to your liking. So you would start in one one point, record that, start another point, record that, start another point, record that, and you can get about 4 or 5 different places, whatever, that you feel sound good. That way you're able to, to kind of detail, like, okay, I really like how this, how it sounds here. There's practical ways of measuring that, where you could take a piece of string and you can mark off the string, and you can sort of like go, okay, we're going to do it at such and such degrees. That way you'll know where you can place the mic, so that you're not just like kind of guessing and seeing like, okay, so you can take a marked up piece of string to determine that and your distance.
Mm-hmm. So that's a lot.
Sorry.
No, that's really good info though, and it's stuff I've never really even thought about when miking a cab. I see the different other channels and where they put them and where most people put mics, and they say, oh, dust cap and where the cone come together, and it's like, okay, well, I just do it right there. But those are all really good things, and we're not going to do all of that today because
Right.
we're going to keep it in the same spot, and we're going to compare the SM57 and the Sennheiser e906. But in another video, I think it would be really cool to do that and to show the different audio samples, and maybe how somebody could go about doing that with a microphone, and really trying to fine tune and dial in their own cabinet. Well, don't get intimidated by that, because there's just so much detail. And I know Chris will be even having some of these discussions on his own channel.
Sure.
So make sure you are following him and checking his stuff out. But maybe for future videos, we'll go through all those other stages of finding the right spot to mic your cab, and then getting the right sound that you want to hear when you're doing your recording,
Right.
Through various different amps or combo amp as well. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we'll get these mic'd up right now, get Chris ready and warmed up, and then we'll come back and do some of these audio samples.
So we're starting off with a 57. It's aimed right at the point where the cap and the cone meet, as marked by Tim. And we're about, I'd say about 3 or 4 centimeters from the grill. And we're miking straight, so it's on axis. The microphone is pointed directly at, and it's directly perpendicular with the speaker. So here we go. We're gonna play. I'm gonna try to keep the riff consistent, because I have a tendency to kind of fly around here and there. So, but we're gonna try to do it, and then we'll switch it up for the 906. All right. Now we've got the E906 up like we promised, and yeah, essentially it's the same thing. It's 3 centimeters from the grill. We're aimed right at the part where the cap and the cone meet, and yeah, so here we go. Now that we compared the two, Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, it was really kind of mind blowing to be able to hear the difference between the two. For me, at least, it's even more apparent than what I thought. So, and you were able to pull up the frequency analyzer, so we could really look at the peaks and valleys of each one, and not just hear it, but see what the audio clip is doing as it's playing through Logic. So really impressed to be able to see the difference in that. I think I still need to listen to it and look at it another like 100 times to really understand the differences. I think they both sound good in different ways.
Yeah.
It's almost like a blend of them might be a good way to go.
Sure.
But yeah, it's, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
what's great about it is that, I think one of the take-home messages for me is that, is that when you have a mic locker, you have a lot of different options at your disposal, and it's good to know what you're getting from your different microphones. And sometimes it just, if like, it might take you a few different mic options to decide on something that you really like.
Mm-hmm.
And both of these microphones have things that we really like from them. You have a little bit more of a flat response from I was actually surprised that there was a little bit more of a flat response from the Sennheiser, and it seemed like the 57 was scooping it out a little bit more. And so it really gave a lot of different options. And I was saying when we were listening back to it that you could either see that they could either have both. So on one performance, so if you mic two of the either two of the speakers or the same speaker, then you would be able to to pan them. Or you could have two performances completely panned, and they're going to give you something a little bit different. And so that just gives you a whole list of different options, so you can really, kind of go into a rabbit hole when it comes to making mic selections and miking up your cab. So, but it's definitely something I feel like when you take these kinds of approaches and you listen, you have like these different, these different options. Really dialing in, the details as to, where are things, sitting on, where is the mic in reference to the speaker? Where is the speaker in reference to the cabinet? Because what would be interesting to see is which of these speakers sound different from each other.
Yep.
And then not just that, but also what happens if we mic a speaker on one side versus the other side of the same speaker, and the relative difference from the other speaker, and also from the wall or any kind of reflective surface.
Yeah.
Because what will end up happening is you're going to have a lot of those different. You're just going to have a lot of different things that affect. And the more that you know about that, the more you can make an informed decision later on when you start to mic your own stuff. So
yeah. It's crazy. There's so much to learn and to find out, and
I've definitely made a lot of mistakes over the years, and so a lot of this stuff happens because, I've had where I've mic'd up the same speaker and have had phasing issues. So that's told me where the capsules need to, they need to stay, in order to get the right phase. I've had to manage another signals, mic bleed, etc., from other sound signals. So how do you account for that? So a lot of that stuff ends up coming into this sort of thing. So really, when you have to think about those, what do they call those things? Those the variables, and you take the variables and you try to account for the variables so that when you make changes what you're listening for. And that's going to be really important.
Yeah. And with so many different things to think about and consider, don't let it intimidate you. Like Chris said, a lot of it's screwing up. And sometimes that's one of the best ways to learn, either from someone that knows what they're doing or from trying things out yourself and hearing if it sounds good or not. And, it's the same with the pedals, and it's the same with your amplifiers, and just getting the right sound takes time. So that's what we're here to do, is to try and help you get there quicker and give you some practical and real A to B comparisons so you can make your own choice, because we may like either the Sennheiser or the 57, maybe one of us like one or the other better, but I think for music it's what you want to hear. It's what you like, and not everybody plays heavy music. So maybe all these settings are a little bit different for everybody else. So don't get discouraged. Keep practicing, keep trying different things. And again, Chris is with Audio Discovery on his own YouTube channel, and he's doing a lot of different interviews with really exciting people and very knowledgeable people in the music industry. But also tell them what else you're going to be doing. Yeah, so
I have a couple of different guitar tutorials. I started off wanting to do a sort of a music tutorial channel, but I'm going to be actually finishing off a series on Appetite for Destruction, and essentially all of the guitar pieces, not necessarily solos, but a lot of the guitar stuff that I think is just has amazed me over the years. And so I'm still working on that. I have an interview, well, not an interview, I just have a conversation with my buddy Andre that's coming up really soon that I'm really excited about. And then, it's going to be also, there's going to be a lot more Cakewalk recording software related content on there. And so, yeah, I'm just making sure that I'm covering things that haven't been covered yet. So I'm sort of just, going out and researching to see that what I'm doing is a little bit more fresh, and, that I can explore it in a different way. So that's pretty much what I've got going.
Awesome. Well, I'm Tim Guitar, and that's Chris from Audio Discovery. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.
All right, see you guys.